originating from the podcast studio inside FAM360's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. The Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast is designed to encourage, equip, and inspire our audience through a combination of inspirational stories and real-life experiences shared by other successful and skilled leaders in a variety of vocations. We hope that the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast empowers each one of us to step out, step up, and ultimately thrive as leaders. Now here's our host, Mr. Matt Maloney.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Maloney. I'm super excited today about our guest, who I will introduce in a moment. I have a great leadership quote though before that from Peter Drucker. The purpose of an organization is to enable ordinary human beings to do extraordinary things. And that couldn't be more true about leaders today, especially leading over the last couple of years through the pandemic and all the things that organizations have struggled through, trying to inspire our people, trying to get ordinary human beings to do extraordinary things in the face of probably one of the biggest obstacles that we faced over the last 100 years in our country. So there are many great words to describe my guest today, but extraordinary definitely is on the top of that list. I'm very excited and pleased to welcome my good friend, Andy Cook. Real quick, before we get started, I'd like to just share a story. You know, Andy and I have known each other for, 8 to 10 years, something like that, through just the community of friends that we're involved in, our church community, some other just circles that we run in together. And over the last several years, Andy and I have gotten really, really close. And I want to share a funny story. Andy and I went to the National League Championship Series clinching game where the Braves beat the Dodgers. It was a late night that night. And, we stayed for a little bit of the after party, the celebration. I don't even know what time in the morning it was that we got home, but it was in the wee hours of the morning. And, but on the drive home, we had one of the most enlightening conversations just about, business strategy, organizational strategy, leadership. We were just talking about a bunch of different things. And although we probably won't talk about that today, that conversation, I'm going to have to follow up with you, Andy, to get some notes on that, because I can't remember all the things that we talked about, but I just remember they were good things. We were like, man, we needed to record this because we came up with some great ideas during that. So anyways.
We also that night, I observed something that great leaders do that you did. Great leaders observe things that nobody else sees. In your case, it was something that other people don't hear. So we spent more time that night talking about the walk-up songs of the opposing team than we did the Braves. And I, for the life of me, had never enjoyed all that's written behind the organ music.
Yes.
How it just pokes fun at the other team. I missed that. So maybe I'm slow. Maybe that's what it is. But that was a great night.
That organ player at the Atlanta Braves, whatever your name is, you are genius.
He really is.
That was good stuff. So, Andy, let's get started. So just tell the member audience here, what's your job title? What's the organization that you work with? And then we'll dive in a little deeper.
I'm Andy Cook at Promise686, and I'm the CEO and president there. I've been there a better part of 8 years now.
Okay.
And our work is to find families for children, to support those families, and make sure kids have what they need wrapped around them at all times so they can grow up and thrive.
And that's awesome. Within your organization, within every organization, there's kind of a mission and vision, and how you keep that mission and vision at the front and center of, with your team is part of your responsibility as a leader. So tell us about the organization's mission and vision, and again, how do you, day in and day out, keep that front and center with your people?
Yeah, it's an exercise, as you say. It's something that we're constantly working to make sure is in front of people. We're in the nonprofit space. So the way to carry that banner of an organization is to continually go back to the need for why you exist.
Yeah.
And if people can interface with that need and make what is sometimes just numbers, something that they feel, then the mission and vision follow, because people want to take action when they know what's happening to children in America. Yeah. And so let me give you just a way to picture that. Take a huge mountain peak. In fact, this thing is so big that there are really 3 peaks to this mountain. One of those peaks is 120,000 children that are in the U.S. foster care system for whom the termination of parental rights has already occurred. These are kids who don't have parents. Legally speaking, they do not have parents, and they are in need of a family. That's one peak of this child welfare mountain that I want you to picture. You're here at the base, you're looking up, and you're going, man, how do you climb to help those kids who are stuck on that peak? There's another peak. It's 400,000 children on a given day in America who are part of the foster care system. And those kids, they're also stuck on this mountain. It's not a place to stay. Foster care, by its definition, is a place where you transition and you go through. It's like an airport. You know, airports are they can be a good thing at times because we need to go places. And for some kids, they need to move from where they were to somewhere else for a period of time. But man, it's a mountain. It's cold. There are kids who have consequences in that setting that last a lifetime.
Wow.
Kids who are moved 2 and 3, 4 times or who never actually get to a permanent placement. Life for them, well, if it's a young woman and she's graduating out at age 18 of the foster care system, more often than not, she's going to be pregnant within 2 years. And guess what? That child who's born is going to end up back into that system. Rates of homelessness, rates of depression, the number of children who are trafficked in America. If you look at that group of tragic children who've experienced something that we don't want to imagine, 65% of those who are trafficked have come through the foster care system. So this is a deadly mountain where there are literal fatalities. And then there's one more peak. So you've got the peak of those children who are in need of adoption. You've got those children who are in foster care. And then sort of the biggest peak of this mountain is the nearly 650,000 confirmed cases of abuse and neglect in a given year. Out of the millions of cases that are never confirmed or totally understood. So that's this child welfare mountain that our organization is positioned to address, but it is so big and it is so alarming. And we gather people at the base of it. Specifically, we go after churches because churches are a point of light in their community and they have the people to go take on this mountain. But man, they stand with us and we go, we will guide you on this mountain. Yeah. But it's going to be scary and it's going to be hard. So our work is to get the people out of the pews onto that mountain to the benefit of children. And we do that through a system that we call a family advocacy ministry. So we plant ministries that advocate for families and children in churches around the country. We work with over 1,000 churches around the country. We work in half the states in America to get the church onto that mountain.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that what I face every single day is tough in my businesses, and it's nothing compared to what you and your team have set out and the mission that you've set out. I love how you use the analogy of Mount Everest and the 3 peaks. That's incredible. I think maybe that should be part of like some sort of new logo schematic for Promise or something. You got to build the 3 peaks in there somewhere. And I think that it's incredible that you encapsulated it that way and keeping that vision and that mission in front of your team. I know that you personally, you have such a passion for children and foster children. Maybe share just some personal experience when you feel like that you yourself led your team or led the organization and went above and beyond in that process. And it's okay. It's okay. You've done some great things, so don't be shy to say, hey, I felt like I really did a good job here. Because I know you do a great job all the time, but maybe there's one thing that you can share about that.
Well, I think when we as leaders go above, in a way what we're saying is we're stepping above and we're seeing things that others don't see, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the above. The beyond is when we have to go beyond ourselves. And where that's played out for me is the recognition that we talk about the mountain of child welfare. That's not something that one organization can go about facing or winning or overcoming.
Sure.
That is an insurmountable obstacle.
Yep.
But it's first and foremost insurmountable because you look at the landscape ahead, again, to use that picture of this vast mountain, and you say, I don't even know how to describe all that's happening or even what those solutions would be. And so something that we have worked so hard at as a team is to give language to a place that people can't understand, and to articulate solutions in a way that people have never heard them stated before. We've actually entered, if this were a business world, we've entered a market where we've invented a new product in sorts. It's not new in that it has never happened before. It's new that there isn't language to suggest what it is and why it's so important. And until there's language, then you can't really take people to this new destination. So I want to emphasize the importance of creating language to describe very clearly what you do and why you do it. And that is something we've put immense time into, because it's language that actually orders a process or a journey.
Yeah.
And then on that's how we're going to address this big problem. First, by articulating what is the problem and how we're going to go about facing it. So even the idea of a family advocacy ministry, it's interesting from a product standpoint, and what this is not a product, but in broader business terms, it is. We used to go to church communities, and we would, almost like this table in front of us, we would have all these solutions that they could pick from. And they would become so overwhelmed by everything that's on the table, they'd kind of balk at it and not know where to begin.
Yeah.
So to clarify that and to say, hey, this table, what's holding the solutions, the mugs, the computer, the plant, what's holding all these solutions, this table itself, that surface is what we call a family advocacy ministry, a FAM.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, this FAM can deliver the solutions. Let's build a FAM. Well, what do FAMs have in common everywhere? And let's, again, step up beyond all the details and say, well, they need to have great leadership. Churches need to dedicate a piece of the budget to own this ministry and to do it well. So just to get language is huge.
That's huge.
The other thing I'd say is just to go beyond. I said that some things go beyond ourselves, right? Some problems are so big. I recently was learning about the American Revolution, and there's a moment where George Washington has everyone encamped, and they're struggling so much, and he brings in a Prussian leader, a special forces Prussian soldier, who trains not everyone who's at Mount Vernon. Instead, it wasn't Mount Vernon. I forgot where it was. Oh gosh, my American Revolution is falling apart. But he trains.
Check that. We'll need to
edit that, wherever that was. It wasn't Mount Vernon. It was cold. He trains 100 leaders in terms of how to go about doing this special forces work. Each of them are responsible for training 100 more. And so what we have to think about if we want to go above and beyond as leaders is what is that training mechanism? What is that plan? And how do we duplicate or even deputize other people along the way to make that difference? And so that's something our organization has put so much time in. And that, man, Matt, that's hard, because when you're deputizing others, in some ways you're removing yourself from the forefront.
Of course you are.
And it sounds pretty because maybe it seems unselfish.
Yeah.
But it actually, you're letting go of control.
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest win in leadership, if I have one, is letting go of control of things that I probably couldn't have controlled anyway.
Yeah. That is, I'm telling you, that is one of the core characteristics of great organizations who have great leaders. And you said it in a different way a moment ago. You said, like, going beyond ourselves, right? Taking things beyond ourselves, beyond what we want to do, and then multiplication, deputizing. You say, I look at that as multiplication of the process, multiplication of the vision and the mission, right? And that's what great organizations do, right? They deputize their leaders, their people, they're within the organization, and then they multiply it. 10 becomes 10 becomes 10, and before you know it, it's 100,000. Yeah. Or it's 400,000 in the foster care system that you've been able to. I love that. That's huge.
Well, and I say the word deputize in a way because it's so important that you empower people with enough power that they can abuse it a little bit. Yeah. And I don't want them to abuse it. I hope they won't. I hope the values of our organization will make it into them in such a way that they won't. But you got to give them just enough for it to be more than enough. And that gives them that sense of autonomy and inspiration. And people do so much more when you give them that room to fail. Yep. And that's a key to deputizing that we didn't always do. But again, it's letting go of control.
Yeah. Member audience, take note of that. That's big. I like that. So all of us in life whether it's in the workplace, at home, personally, we all go through major struggles. Within your organization, within Promise, what's the hardest thing that you've gone through? What is, or if it's not the hardest, maybe one of the hardest things that sticks out in the top of your mind that you've had to go through as a leader in the organization? And maybe it was a failure that's never been rectified. Maybe it's something else, but what is that?
I think every year there seems to be one thing that was a failure.
Yeah.
And you step into a new year and you go, man.
And if you only have one, you're doing a great job. I can tell you that right now.
Well, okay. Yeah, one notable one, or one that I want to remember. How about that? This past year, I brought on a new leader who has done an excellent job. And I laugh with him about this often. His personality and style are different than mine. And you are entirely limited as a leader in what you can accomplish if everyone has to conform to your personality and style. I knew that. I know that. You know that.
Of course.
But man, making that real and letting another leader bring what they bring to the table with their team, and to go out in a way that it's not out of line with the cultural norms of the organization, but it is out of line maybe with how I would have done it. So I think across the year, I probably hampered his style some by trying to make him more like me.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think as the organization grows, we're not big. We're 18 people. We're $3 million. We will grow this year to hire 10 more people.
Yeah.
And, to make sure that I'm not trying to make them like me and thus holding us back, that's something that I got to get better at.
Yeah. But, great organizations, they need leaders of different styles, different qualities, different characters, so that they can complete their circle, what I call the circle of influence, right? Their circle of influence. Because if it's one piece of pie in the whole pie versus multiple, it's never gonna grow beyond what it does. So, there are so many different types and styles and ways to lead organizations. There's, leadership really is not one form; it's many forms. As you just said, you have another leader in your organization that has a different style than you, and that's added value to the organization. And if you're going to grow by 60% this next year by adding another 10 people, you're going to have to bring in leaders that have, and perhaps even different style than you and your other leaders currently today. But that being said, what do you think, in your perspective, and from the experience and the trials and the tribulations that you've had, and the other leaders that have groomed you, and then looking out at kind of your community at large, what do you think is lacking in leadership today, just generally speaking?
I laugh because my answer to that is so much a part of what probably is lacking in me, and I want to see more in me, right? Or it's built around a strength I have, and therefore, I assume that other people should bring it to the table. So caveat that I don't know how warped my answer will be, but it's simple. It's follow through. I think I know so many consultants who I wish they would do something with all their words, and it just drives me crazy. I don't care how pretty you can say it. I care if you can make it.
Yep.
And that builder piece is something that we need in our country, frankly, right? I mean, you could carry that out in lots of ways when it comes into manufacturing and other spots.
Yeah.
But I don't want a team of consultants. I don't want a nation of consultants.
Yeah.
I don't want a family of consultants. I don't want to be a father as a consultant. I want to be someone who is an operator and who can deliver something on behalf of others or for others. So that's the piece that I struggle with when I meet people.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot about that. I've talked about it with my children, and I'm going to dumb it down what you just said in a much simpler way. But it's like, don't tell me, but show me, right? Don't say you're going to brush your teeth in a minute, but go brush your teeth, right? I mean, this is with my kid, right? But it's the same. It's the same in business. Don't tell me and show me how you think it works, but integrate it, not only suggest it, but be a builder and an integrator in that. And I think that's great. That's huge. So is there a time within the organization, we all have failures? You apparently only have one per year. Take note of that, guys. No, I'm just kidding. But is there a time that if you look back in the organization since inception to now that you wish perhaps you would have led differently?
I think sometimes I claim humility when it's really fear, right? I project humility and justify my behaviors around a value of humility when really I'm holding back. And so, you're holding back because why? Because you're fearful of doing something wrong. You're fearful of someone not like. Unpack that a little bit for us. Yeah, that's good. I would say I'm fearful of making the wrong choice, right?
Okay.
So humility, which isn't true humility, veiled humility can actually be indecision, right? You can point to even an organizational value, and we uphold humility is very, very high in our hierarchy of cultural values. And sometimes I find myself, arm in arm with that when a more faithful and fearless, courageous response to the moment is to get out there and to do that thing and to say that thing. I could see that in a really finite way with employee interactions. There's something that I love, that idea of the last 5 or last 10%. Have you told someone the whole story?
Yep.
I can be overly understanding as a leader of others, or at least appear to be overly understanding, but then there's still a grudge. So, that's something that I've had to work time and time again.
So where do you hold back in those instances?
Yeah.
Like you hold back
historically,
really
I held back over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And people sense the thing that you're not saying, right?
Yeah.
And so it stays in the room, it stays in the interaction, even though you never said it. So you think that maybe you chose the higher road and you didn't. Again, you can build a total case for why you didn't say the thing you might have said.
Yeah.
In actuality, you're going to say it through your tone, if not in that moment, another time.
Yeah.
Our silence does speak, even as leaders in our organization. And I've got to make sure if there's something that is a hang up, I've got to find a way as a mature and loving adult to say it in a way that people hear, whether they want to hear it or not. So that's something I've worked on in the last year. And I think in the early years of our organization, I didn't do that very well.
Yeah, that's good. I made a note here about, humility is a strong quality of leadership, but don't let it get in the way of creating and driving progress. Right. Yeah. And transparency is obviously critical in any relationship. And in the organization, just like within your marriage, it's especially critical with your leadership team. Be transparent, whether it's something that's a hard conversation or not, because that, which may be veiled as humility or whatnot, could get in the way of progress. That's awesome. So before we go on today's episode, is there anything else that you'd like to share about your organization?
I'd just say that if there's someone who's listening who says, "Hey, I want to get super engaged in that story of that mountain and the children who are on that mountain," because you go, man, 400,000 children. What do I even do with that?
Yeah.
Well, put a child, put your 8-year-old Matt on that mountain, and what are you going to do to get to him? So let's put a face on who that is, and if that moves you, if someone's listening right now and says, "I'm moved by that," then get to our website, promise686.org.
Yeah.
/FAMS, FAMS, and read about what we do, and let's start something in your community together, because there are children who need us to respond.
That's awesome. Dude, you killed it. Thank you. Again, promise686.org /FAMS, FAMS. Go to that website, check it out, and see what Promise 686 all about. I've been frankly blessed to be a part of their growth and walking alongside of Andy and the team, and just supporting in any way I can. And as an organization, I'd like to just share, as an organization, we've supported Promise. We've kind of tripled down on our commitment to that organization. And in part, it's because of the personal connection that I have, not to Andy, but to the mission that Andy and his team are carrying out. And he said it best, if you have a child, think about your child, your 8-year-old, your 18-year-old, your adult child whoever that's on the top of that mountain, that's cold, that's hurting. How do we scale the mountain to get to them? How do we scale to touch every single one of those kids? So, Andy, I've loved having you today. Can't wait to pick this back up on the next episode to continue the conversation about life and leadership. Thanks everyone for listening. And I hope you join me on the next episode to complete the rest of Andy's story. Until then, wish all you guys well and continue to go above and beyond. Thank you.